and welcome back to another video. In this video we are going to be fitting a whole heap of upgrades to our Losi Micro B and seeing if it's all really worth it. First off, a big shout out to Injora for sending me all of these amazing parts to test. Okay, so let's take a quick look at some of the parts that we have got for this build. We have got the aluminium hubs and caster blocks, those just to give us a little bit more strength on that front end, and likewise on the rear we have got the rear hubs. Now because we have added a little extra weight with the aluminium parts, I've gone with this to try and lighten the car back up again, which is the forged carbon fibre chassis. Next we have this, which is the brushless ESC mount. Now while we're not going brushless, I went for this purely for, again, strength reasons, just to try and stiffen up that chassis as much as possible. Then we have this, which is the adjustable link set. Moving on, next we have the full aluminium adjustable shocks. And lastly, we have the wheels and tires. Okay, so now we've got the car apart, let's take a look at the new chassis and do a quick weight comparison. Popping the stock chassis onto the scales, we can see what it weighs, and it comes in at 14.37 grams. If we then just tear off the scales and replace it with the carbon one, we can see that that is a saving of 6.47 grams, nearly 6.5 grams, which is quite a significant amount on a car this small. Now a quick tip for whenever you are putting screws into plastic, and that is to place the screw into the hole, give it a couple of reverse rotations until you feel a little click, and then once you do, start going in forwards. Now, as we build the car back up, I'm going to be adding in a couple of these, which are some small little stainless steel shims. They measure 5mm on the outside, 2mm on the inside, and are 0.125mm thick. We are going to be placing them, as I say, on the hinge pins, and that is just to take out any slop that we have in the system and just hopefully tighten up the feel of the car. Okay, so that is the chassis all fitted up, and I have to say it does look very good. It also went together really smoothly and easily without any issues at all. So now we've got that done, let's move on to the front and the rear end and get some hubs fitted up. Let's first off put the stock spindles onto the scales, and those are coming in at 0.74 grams. If we then replace those with the Injora aluminium, those are coming in at 1.8, so that is just over a gram heavier, which isn't a huge amount, but it could start adding up. So let's carry on and see where we end up. Now moving on to the caster blocks, we have the stock ones, which are coming in at just about 0.4 of a gram, and then going over to the Injora, which are coming in at just under a gram, so around about a 0.6 of a gram heavier with the aluminium. Okay, so while we're here, let's pop on the rear hubs as well, and those stock plastic ones are coming in at 0.75 grams, and now if we do the aluminium Injora ones, those are coming in at 1.77, so just about a 1 gram difference with the aluminium. So not again a huge amount, but it is gaining weight. Hopefully that will balance out those parts on the front, but it is slowly creeping up. Okay, so with that all done, let's get these parts onto the car. Now one thing to note when you are doing the caster blocks, and that is that the stock ones are left and right sided, however the Injora are the same for both sides, so no need to worry which side they go on. There you go, that is them all installed. Now when you are doing the front spindles, you do need to make sure that you get the top and bottom screws just right, otherwise you will get binding. However, once you have done that and put a drop of Loctite on them, they do seem to work very nicely indeed, and there is very little slop or play in them. Moving on to the stainless steel link set, there are a couple of things that I want to note, and that is when you are assembling them, there are 4 straight ones in the packet, 2 short and 2 long. The short ones are for the rear of the car and the long ones are for the front. Also, you will notice that when you are screwing on the ends that they are both threaded in the same direction. So unfortunately that does mean that when you are wanting to make adjustments on the car, you're going to need to pop one side off, as when you tighten down one end, you're going to be loosening the other, cancelling out what you are doing. So that is something just to be aware of. And there we have it. The links are now all installed and everything is running nice and smoothly. Now onto the shocks, and I have dealt with some similar shocks like this in the past, and well, let's put it like this, they weren't exactly brilliant, so it will be interesting to see what these ones are like. Now straight out of the bag, these shocks feel very nice indeed, and they are incredibly smooth. Even under a small side load, there is no form of binding, which is really nice to see. As they came, they did feel a little on the soft side. However, in the bag, you did get a second set of stiffer springs, so I have opted to fit those ones. Now bleeding these shocks can be quite tricky, and my personal preference with these after a little testing is to run a little more rebound than usual. I leave approximately 8mm of shaft out of the bottom there when I put that top cap back on. And there you go, that is all of the shocks on there, and as I said before, they really do feel silky smooth. And I have no doubt we'll be able to get them set up just how we want and hopefully really improve the performance of the car. Okay, so next up we've got the top plate. Now this is a fraction heavier than I wanted, comes in at just around about 5 grams. So I have a bit of a plan to try and lighten things up. What we're going to do is try and CNC some of this away and thin it out in a couple of areas. I've had a bit of a play around on CAD and the 3D printer, and these sort of cutouts are what I'm aiming to remove down to a depth of about actually goes the other way, about 1 mil. I think I've done it as, so, you know, significantly, hopefully lighten this up a bit. I'm aiming to get it down to sort of 3 grams, so ideally take 2 grams off it. I don't know if I will or not, we'll have to find out. Maybe not. But anyway, that is the plan. I'm going to go out to my CNC and try and do that. I have made a little jig here to hold it in. So that is going to clip into there and tape down, do something to fix it in place. Right, well, we are all set up on the CNC, ready to go. I've got my little jig holder thingy set, screwed down and all lined up. I've got my part on there. Unfortunately, I don't have the right router bit. I couldn't find what I wanted. Hopefully this one is going to do the job. Only one way to find out, really. Let's give it a go. So back in from the garage, and well, things didn't go quite to plan. I made a real mess of it, and I'm a bit disappointed in myself. I think it was partly down to rushing too much, trying to get this done. But yeah, it didn't turn out great. Even after removing all of that, I am still only 1.2, I think, grams lighter. So not brilliant, as I say. I think the question is, do I go with the modified one or do I go with the stock one? I think given that you have to work so hard to get the battery in and out, removing screws and whatnot, for racing tonight, or sorry, tomorrow night, I'm just going to go with the stock one, see how it goes. And then in time, I'll try and do some more work on this and see if we can cut a new one and modify it and get it working. But yeah, there you go. That's where we're at. Okay, so we are just about back together now, with the exception of fitting the top plate and fitting our wheels. We should be good to go. Let's do a quick weight comparison and see where we're at. Okay, so let's start this comparison with a near enough stock car. The only changes I have made to this are with the wiring, and just tidied that up and put a transponder wire on. So popping this onto the scales, let's see what we get. We get 105.57. Okay, let's try that once more. Yeah, 105.58. So let's go with that. Then going over to the now modified car with Injora parts. Let's try that again. There we go, 105.24. 105, yeah, 105.23. I'm happy with that. That is 0.25 of a gram lighter than we had with the stock car. So that is pretty good news. Now we do need to talk about weight distribution. Obviously a lot of that weight saving has been in the carbon fiber chassis, which is one of our lowest components, so potentially raising the center of gravity a fraction. Obviously those shocks will have made a bit of a difference too. However, a majority of that weight being in those hubs is, you know, actually in line with or below the chassis, so that will make up for a little of that sacrifice that we have made with going with the lighter chassis. Okay, so we are out testing at the track. There we go. And all going fairly well. Okay, so back home from the track and testing, and well, unfortunately, we had quite a few issues. So let's go through them right now. Okay, so issue number one was with the screws on the spindles. Now, I did mention earlier in the video that you had to be very careful with how you set them so that the hubs didn't bind. Now, those screws, even though they were Loctited in, unfortunately fell out. So I replaced them with the stock screws. Now the stock screws have a slightly longer shoulder on them, so you can actually bottom that shoulder out on the C-hub, meaning that you can get them a lot tighter, and that did seem to solve that issue. Now next up, again steering related, we were having issues with the car not tracking straight and sort of veering off one way or veering off the other when you turned. That I have ended up finding that it was actually the C-hub binding on the knuckle. I'll pop a little video clip in of what I found. And to resolve that, I ended up having to just file the C-hub and just getting a tiny bit of tolerance and space in there, which you can just see, which has seemed to have solved that problem. Now next up was the steering links, and I did feel that they were a little loose at the start, and indeed they did end up popping off quite easily if you hit the barrier. So unfortunately I'm not too sure if there's anything they're going to be able to do with these, but it is something that we're going to need to look at. Now I didn't get a huge amount of time on the wheels and tyres, however the time that I did get, well, I found really that the front tyres have too much grip, and it did make the car rather aggressive in the corners. So I'll continue to do a little more testing with them, but at the moment my preference is probably towards the stock setup. Now moving on to the shocks, which I still really like a lot. I did feel that the Injora springs were a little on the soft side. I did try with moving the shock collars down to give a little more preload, but I was still getting a lot of packing down and losing ride height, which ended up causing a few issues going over some of the jumps. So what I've ended up doing is replacing those Injora springs with the stock Losi springs, and that indeed has brought the car back up again, and it does feel nice. So we'll do a little more testing with those before we give a final verdict. So with all those issues sorted out, let's go give it another try. Now, as I said, we don't have any buggy racing coming up, so I've set up a small track in the living room, and it will just give us a bit of an idea what the car is doing and how it's feeling, and also get a little bit of time on it just to iron out any further issues. So let's give it a go. Now, after ironing out those bugs that we had at the start and a whole load more testing, how does the car feel? Well, I have to say it does now feel very good indeed. However, what is my final verdict on the upgrades? First off, the chassis. Now, obviously that did save a huge amount of weight. However, it would have potentially increased the center of gravity. However, coupled with the aluminium on the hubs, I think that just about balances out the positives and negatives. So I am very happy with that upgrade indeed. So next onto the link set, and well, I'm a little bit on the fence on these. At the track, we obviously had issues with the steering link popping off, and it obviously gets a little frustrating when you're in the middle of a race. However, at home, we didn't have any further issues. The ball joints are a little on the loose side. However, these are significantly cheaper than the Losi ones. So if you are just going to be driving around at home or doing a little light bashing, then I would definitely consider them. However, if you are going to be racing, then I would probably look at some other options and save yourself some potential frustration. Now, moving on to the hubs. On the rear, we had no issues at all. However, on the front, we obviously did. Those issues were relatively easy to fix, and now they do perform quite well, and there is a significant saving going with the Injora ones versus the Losi ones, so I'll let you decide whether that upgrade was worth it or not. Now, moving on to the shocks. Now, these really are the standout item for me, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend them. They're under half the price of the Losi ones, and they really are as smooth as I've said. Now, obviously we opted to run with the stock Losi springs. However, with those two other sets that they give you, that now gives us plenty of tuning options. Now onto the wheels and tyres. Now, while I didn't test these outside where they may be better suited, on the carpet I did find them just a little too aggressive and made the car a bit of a handful to drive. So for me, it's a pass this time. Now, obviously Injora sent me these parts to review, and all they asked for back was my honest opinion, which is exactly what you got. Now, I have also spoken to them about some of the issues that we had, and they are indeed looking into those, and hopefully we will see some further improvements in the near future. Now, also as a small thank you, they gave me a discount code for you guys, so I will pop that down in the description below. But there you go, that just about wraps this one up, and I've got to say it has been a lot of work. If you have found this video helpful, please hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out and will hopefully mean I can continue to bring you more content like this in the future. In the meantime, have fun wherever you are. I will see you in the next one.